Movies can have a lasting impression on you and bring back great memories. Certain images you will always remember. Things that have been with me all my life and keep getting added to with every movie I see.
I will turn this place into the fucking Wild Bunch if I think you are fucking with me.
E.T. from home.
This is the end of your rotten life, you motherfucking dope pusher!
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Welcome to My Cellular Heart Podcast, Season 4, Episode 159. This is a new one-off that we are doing with Epic Films. We did one before with Bridge on the River Kwai, and now we're doing The Great Escape from 1963. I'm your host, Phillip Duke, and I am here with...
his cousin Chip. Hello, everybody.
Hello, Chip.
Stop drinking that coffee, man.
Hey,
It makes me cough.
I just woke up. Well, not yet, but maybe. Corrections from last week's show. We don't really have anything except for that show with Brian Cox is called, it was so close. That new show that's on like HBO or Showtime. Remember we were talking about Brian Cox last week? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it was, whatchamacallit? It's a show with Kieran Culkin is in it. Mm-hmm. And Succession. It's called Succession.
Oh, okay.
So that was the only correction, but I didn't play the theme because I was like, there was kind of some, and I'm like, that's more like people could figure that out. Like, maybe I'll just get rid of corrections. Who knows? You ready to get on with the show? You got anything to talk about before we start?
Nope, I'm good. This was a long movie. I wasn't expecting it to, I don't know, the point with which things started kind of kicking off and everything. I was like, huh. And then I looked and I was like, there's still 40 minutes left.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Well, it's fun. We'll get to it, but it's fun because you're sitting there going, like I was thinking, is Chip going like, oh, this is a slog, like, and like bored with it or whatever. But it's not one of those boring, slow movies. It's like, it gets going, James Garner, James Coburn, those people, Richard Attenborough, even though you're like, oh, he's got hair and he's got dark hair. Oh, interesting. But yes,
Welcome to Germany Park.
That's right. Welcome to POW. Welcome to Luftwaffe 3. Yes. Okay. Let's get to it.
This camp has been built to put all our rotten eggs in one basket.
It was the toughest POW camp in Germany.
And we intend to watch this basket carefully.
If you escape again, you will be shot.
A prison no ordinary man could escape from. But these...
The goons have put every escape artist in Germany in this camp.
What were you doing?
I was trying to cut my way through your wire because I want to get out.
were no ordinary men.
We'll dig straight down 30 feet.
Their plan was impossible.
It'll bring every goon in the camp down to top of us. How many men do you plan to take out, Roger? 250. There'll be no half measures this time, gentlemen.
Their courage was unstoppable.
The Great Escape, 1963. The plot: put a fence in front of these men and they'll climb it. The Nazi, exasperated at the number of escapes from their prison camps by a relatively small number of Allied prisoners, relocate them to a highly security, escape-proof camp to sit out the remainder of the war. Undaunted, the prisoners plan one of the most ambitious escape attempts of World War II, based on a true story. So what was cool here is, like, we'll get to it, but right when they show up, like, Steve McQueen's like kicking that little thing, and he's like wondering, like, oh, that other guy's like looking under the barracks, like, how can we, what can we do here? Charles Bronson and them are like, how long do you think that is? How far? Do you think past there? Do you think over here? So way cool. stars.
Well, I never realized at that point. I never realized like when it starts going and you're going, wait a second. So not only are they trained in the art of doing whatever the hell they do for the military, they each have their own job when it comes to how the fuck do we get out of here after being caught.
Yeah. Well, and that's what's fun too is, we'll get to it later, and I don't know if you looked anything up, but everybody who did the escape, there were no Americans. So they put in Steve McQueen, they put in James Garner. There was an Australian, that was James Coburn. Or anyway, a lot of these characters were amalgamations of so there were like 20 other guys, and maybe they brought them down to 5.
Yeah.
But the thing that was cool was the thing, like I was reading on the liner notes for the Blu-ray, was they put just as much care into the guy that does the outfits. That's like, I can make a double-breasted, I can make this, as much care into that as they do into James Garner or whatever. And when we get to the James Garner stuff, that was badass. But anyway, but Chip probably hated this movie. But here we go. Stars. Steve McQueen is Captain Virgil Hiltz, the Cooler King. James Garner is Flight Lieutenant Bob Hendley. So he fought in the Korean War and was wounded twice, and he was a scrounger during that time. So when he wasn't in a POW camp, but he was that guy that on the base that you're like, I could really use some, beans with molasses. And he's like, here you go. And you're like, what the fuck?
So he was Spaceman.
Like, yeah, exactly. And I love that part. We'll get to it. But I love the part when he's like, when Donald Pleasence is like, this tea just isn't as good. Like, it'd be better with cream or whatever. And then when he holds the door open, he's holding the can right in front of his face. And he's like, oh, you got cream. And it's like, you stole that from your own men. Like, you didn't even...
Yep.
Richard Attenborough is Squadron Leader Roger Bartlett, Big X. So Richard Harris was originally announced for the role. So we know him from Someday Maybe We'll Do The Man Called Horse, because that's painful. Also, his character is based on Roger Bushell, the South African-born British POW who was the mastermind of the real Great Escape. So it was good that they just got together and was like, here's what we're doing. And something that I did learn here that, we're kind of all over the place, but it's okay, was my dad. The other day I'm talking to my dad, and he says, we were talking about Great Escape and we're talking about World War II, and he goes, that it was they had to like escape, like that's what they were supposed to do, and da-da-da. And I was like, okay. And then I look up, then I'm reading on the liner notes and on doing all the research. And there's nothing in the Geneva Convention, not necessarily that, but, a male code for like the British or whatever to be like, you must escape. Like they didn't have to, but they did. But it's amazing. James Donald as Group Captain Ramsey, the SBO, senior British officer. So he's based on Group Captain Herbert Massey, a World War I veteran who had volunteered in World War II, and he had been injured in both wars, and he walked with a limp. And so in the movie, he's got a cane, so it's like, oh, that's a cool little thing. Charles Bronson as Flight Lieutenant Danny Walensky, Tunnel King. Charles Bronson was a gunner in the U.S. Air Force, it says USAAF. I'm not sure AAF, but anyway, I'm sure somebody will yell at me. Anyway, a gunner in the USAAF and had been wounded but never shot down. Like his character, he suffered from claustrophobia because of his childhood work in a mine. So I don't know if you knew that. Like his parents made him go to work in a mine when he was young, and like he was claustrophobicated. But then, like for him to go from like a little mining kid to like the biggest star in the 70s in Hollywood, like, yeah awesome. Way to go. Donald Pleasence is Flight Lieutenant Colin Blythe, the Forger. His character was based on Tim Whalen, and Pleasence himself had served in the Royal Air Force during World War II. He was shot down and spent a year in German prisoner of war camp Stalag Luft 1. Oh, wow. So, yeah, that would be like just crazy, like, And something that I didn't write here, but the guy that helped them, Wally Floyd, who helped them, he was the He was a Canadian, and I think I wrote it down later about him helping. He was the advisor on the film, and he dug one of the tunnels. He was basically Charles Bronson. And so they were saying that he was like, you guys are doing something right because I'm having nightmares.
Oh, damn.
Like, it's like, holy shit. So that was cool. James Coburn as Flying Officer Louis Sedgwick, the manufacturer. Coburn, an American, was cast in the role of Royal Australian Air Force Flying Officer Louis Sedgwick, who was an amalgamation of Flight Lieutenant Albert Hake, an Australian serving in the RAF, the camp's compass maker, and Johnny Travis, the real manufacturer. So that's those kind of things where you're like, okay, like some things are, embellished, like for, things, but then they take all the characters, put them into one, because then you'd have a whole bunch of like, oh, and this guy and that guy. Hans Messmer as Oberst von Luger, the commandant. He was based on Oberst Friedrich Wilhelm von Liedner-Waldau, which I've heard that Wildau name from somewhere before. But yeah, well, Germans, they're older than we are. We just got Philip Duke and Chip Reeves, and this is like bomb, bomb, bomb. Hans had been a POW so this is the real guy, the actor playing this. Hans had been a POW in Russia during World War II and had escaped by walking hundreds of miles to the German border. He was wounded by Russian fire, but was not captured by the Russians. He surrendered to British forces and then spent 2 years in a POW facility in London known as the London Cage. So this guy, we didn't do him on our Recasted, but I love how he's empathetic to all of them. Like, he's doing his job, but he's also like, I understand, we're putting all our eggs in this basket. Well, we're putting all our eggs out the fence. David Mccallum. So he was from Uncle, the man from Uncle. He's from that. David Mccallum as Lieutenant Andy McDonald, Intelligence. And here's the best part, Chip. I wasn't going to put him on here, but I found this fact, and I was like, cool. And Tillman Kill, Kiwe, I don't know how to say that name, Kill. Kiver is his name. So his name's Tillman Kiver, as a German guard Frick. Q, or Kiver, whatever, had been a German paratrooper officer who was captured and held prisoner at a POW camp in Colorado. He made several escape attempts, dyeing his uniform and carrying forged papers. He was captured in the St. Louis train station during one escape attempt. He won the Knight's Cross before his capture and was the cast member who had actually performed many of the exploits shown in the film. So that's the guy Frick where he's like, oh, chocolate, take it. No, I cannot. No.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, I got to put that in. Written by Paul Brickhill. He wrote the book, Great Escape, in 1950. And then Brickhill had been a very minor member of the X organization at Stalag Luft III, who acted as one of the stooges who monitored German movements in the camp. The story had been adapted as a live TV production, screened by NBC as an episode of the Philco Television Playhouse on January 27, 1951. And then when John Sturges starts becoming big, and they're like, you can do whatever, he's like, I love this book, I want to do this book. And everybody is like he had the main producers kind of read a synopsis of it, and they'd read it, and they go, but nobody escapes. Like, it's an escape movie where nobody gets out. And he's like, no, it's good. And then somebody else read it and was like, what are you crazy? And he's like, who would know that this would be my movie that, like, I would do that, just would work. And then also written by James Clavell, W.R. Burnett, and Walter Newman wrote the screenplay. So they brought, like, a British guy in to put a little British flavor to it and different things like that. Cool. Directed by John Sturges. So in case you don't know him, he did The Magnificent Seven, and he did Black Rock. Bad Times at Black Rock. So yeah, it's really good. Now we're up to Chip's favorite part, Recasted. It was a big one. We did 6 people.
Yeah.
And, so I got Steve McQueen, Captain Virgil Hiltz, the Cooler King, Bradley Cooper.
Sweet.
James Garner, Flight Lieutenant Bob Henley, the Scrounger. I got Ryan Gosling. Like, sweet. I could see him being like really like just everybody loving him and being like, sure, I'll give you chocolates. Richard Attenborough, Squadron Leader Roger Bartlett, Big X. Daniel Craig.
Sweet.
Charles Bronson, Flight Lieutenant Danny Walensky, Tunnel King. This one I had a hard time with because I wanted somebody that's like Charles Bronson, like that's, I forget where he's from, but like that. And but I got Tom Hardy.
Oh, okay, sweet.
Because I wanted somebody like burly and kind of like little burly guy.
Yeah, I had to look it up to see that the character that he plays is Polish.
Oh, yeah. Oh, see, I didn't go that deep. Donald Pleasence, Flight Lieutenant Colin Blythe, The Forger, Giovanni Ribisi. Because right away when I saw him, I was like, oh, that'd be perfect. And James Coburn, Flying Officer Louis Sedgwick, The Manufacturer, Ewan McGregor.
Sweet. Okay. Awesome.
So maybe doing an Australian accent or whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that was why I picked like a couple of people, is because I figured they can. One of them is actually Australian that I have for the Sedgwick, but
yeah, I could have went that way. I didn't even think of that. I was just like, who's an Australian? I don't know, but yeah, we know him. Fucking, he was on a big summer blockbuster. But go ahead. You put Yahoo Serious as fucking James Coburn. That's awesome. Of course. Yeah.
No, I put that's not a knife. That's a knife.
Paul Hogan.
Yeah.
Paul Hogan could run that. He could be Big X. It's big Paul Hogan, right. Big X. Yeah.
All right, let's see. For Hiltz, I have Ryan Gosling.
Sweet.
And for Henley, I have Ryan Reynolds.
Okay. For Henley, Ryan Reynolds. Oh, interesting. Yeah. I think I almost went that way. Yeah. Cool.
Because I could just see that everybody loving him and him just being able to just
like we said, and just
manipulate and do it all and be like, what?
Well, and that's the thing with Frick. You feel like I want to give Frick stuff, but also it's that cool moment of him pulling all that shit out, and Frick's like, wait, where'd you get his jam? And he's like, you can have it if you want. No, I must tell. No, you must not tell. And what they said, and I don't think I put it on here, but it's good that I do this research, and then when you say it, it reminds me. They said a lot of things that were helped was like because of the Germans. Like the Germans would give them things that they needed because not everybody was like, my country, yes. They were like, go ahead, try to escape. So,
yeah.
Okay, sorry.
All right. For the Richard Attenborough, for his part Bartlett, I have Ricky Gervais.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Oh, wow. Being like serious and interesting. Okay. Yep. Okay. Cool.
For the Charles Bronson part, Danny, I have Oscar Isaac.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he'd be good. Yeah, he'd be real good. Yeah.
Well, and the way that he did the accents and stuff for Moon Knight, I figured he could do that kind of Polish.
Well, and just the acting of like being buried, like, when the guy's like, it's happened 3 times. And then that 4th time, he's like, 4 times now it happens,
Yeah. All right. For the Donald Pleasence part, the Blythe, I have Tim Roth.
Oh, cool. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I like that.
Because I was trying to figure out who could work really well. I thought Tim Roth and Ryan Reynolds, just kind of, him really being sympathetic to Tim Roth when he goes blind and everything, and just it'd be awesome. And for my Australian doing Sedgwick, I have Jai Courtney.
Oh, interesting. That's a Boomerang guy, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
and,
cool.
The diehard son of
diehard son. Yeah. That's cool. I like it. I thought it was going to be more difficult than it was. I don't know about you, but at first I was like, okay, right away Bradley Cooper came, like that'll be cool. And I was like, gross, Bradley Cooper came. No, he came to my mind. And then,
gross.
But then after that was the thing of, then I was like, oh fuck, like Leo would be good in that because we saw him, even though he's Rick Dalton but he would be good as a fucking Cooler King. He'd be badass. So, yeah.
Actually, what I was kind of thinking about that before for whatever reason, like Ricky Gervais hit me for Bartlett, but I was thinking that Leo would have been as good as Bartlett.
As the head guy. Yeah, that'd be cool.
I could just see him, like, the seriousness of him getting stressed out about making sure everything goes according to plan and just being...
Yeah, exactly. And something that they explained that they didn't really say it in the movie was the thing of the thing that because that one guy's injured, the James Donald character, the actor, because in the movie he's injured and has to walk with a cane, he can't go. Like, that's the same thing with not having the eyesight. So he can't go, but he can plan everything and just have everybody go. But how bad is that when you send everybody and then they come back and go, wait, how many are dead? You know. So are you ready? Oh, well, I have here first time that you saw this epic movie. Did you ever see parts of it? Did your dad ever talk about it? Your mom? Anybody?
I don't remember ever seeing. I think I was like shocked just to know that that certain people were in this. Like, I think I only knew or had heard about Steve McQueen and Bronson.
Oh, wow. Cool. Yeah.
I think that's it. I think that's all I've ever known.
Yeah. That's cool. So, yeah. So when you saw Richard Attenborough, did you connect it with Jurassic Park, or were you just like, who is this guy? And then you're like, oh, it's Jurassic Park guy. But
well, that's all I've ever known him.
Yeah, right. Yeah. 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 Recently I've seen him.
That was weird.
He was in he did like a murder. It was like a real murder that happened at 10 Rillington Place. And he did a movie where he's this killer, and it was crazy.
Wow.
And it was like in the 70s that he did it. Mine. So had you ever seen any Steve McQueen movies?
No, I think I've only seen him on TV.
Mm-hmm. Like Wanted, Dead or Alive?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Before he got like big on the, theatrical, I think it was only just for him being in episodes.
Yeah, because he was in Magnificent Seven, then this, and then all of a sudden, like, you can see, like, oh, he's got it, you know.
Yeah.
But that's that thing on what do you call it, Chip? Magnificent Seven, the thing that I've talked about, Yul Brynner, when they're sitting in the stagecoach and he's shaking the thing, and Yul Brynner's like, what the fuck is with this kid? Why is he shaking that? And it's like, because it draws his attention and draws everyone's attention, and now they know that he's a star and you're Yul Brynner.
Yeah.
But yeah. You ready to get to some listener opinions?
I do have a question first.
Okay, go ahead. Steve McQueen, is he alive or dead? He is dead. He died in 1980. No. I'm very sorry.
Well, that was going to be my question, was how far after he started getting big did he pass away? I wasn't sure.
Well, I think like Bullet was 68, and then like Sand Pebbles he did before that, and then he did The Getaway in like the 71 or 72, and then kind of spaced him out, did Papillon. And then his last one was 1980. It was called The Hunter, and he was like this bounty hunter, and kind of like a Max Cherry type, and so it was really cool. But yeah, that was where like I said, where Steven Spielberg wanted him for Close Encounters, and he was like, "No, my fans won't take me crying. I can't do that." And he was like, "Okay," and so, yeah.
Okay.
But, all right, let's get to some. But, yeah, there's some good movies out there, especially Papillon, and I love The Getaway is my favorite.
I've seen Papillon.
Okay. Yeah, with Dustin Hoffman.
I do remember seeing that with my dad. So, I have seen that.
Yeah, he's really good in that. All right, you ready for listener opinions?
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Well, you gotta have an opinion.
Well, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one.
I hated this movie.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
I like it! Opinions vary.
Robbie Ferguson, 1977, wrote, quote, an absolutely fantastic film, very loosely based on the events, but that in no way detracts from some great actors playing great characters and some legendary stunts. Well worth a view. I am envious of those getting to see it for the first time. Chip. Julian D. Morton wrote, quote, love it, absolute classic, with an okay emoji and a heart emoji. Tim Martin wrote, haven't had time to finish it, but need to go back and find a day to watch it, unquote. So he had bought the Blu-ray that I have that's like, really cool looking. And like it's better than the regular poster because it's him sticking his head up out of the thing. But he didn't get to finish it. So it's like, oh, bum deal. Michael Strom wrote, quote, haven't seen this since I was a kid. May need to revisit, unquote. And I said, yes, go do it now. Chrissy Boy 2702 wrote, a holiday classic, thumbs up and 2-star emojis. Holiday for 4th of July. Joseph Darlington, our friend over there at Being James Bond, don't forget what you were going to say, wrote, quote, great classic, exclamation, exclamation, unquote. Okay, you ready for our resident reviewer, Brant Dotson?
Oh, yeah.
Wrote, The Great Escape is a classic, epic, entertaining, funny, and tragic. I remember the first time I saw The Great Escape when I was in the 8th grade. My history teacher showed it in class over several days, and I loved it. I've seen it several times since, and I enjoy it every time. I read the book that it's based on, and the movie is fairly faithful. There are more characters and more details to the escape that are condensed for the sake of the film narrative and pacing, but I think it's a successful adaptation. The Great Escape, great casting, great directing, great cinematography, great writing, great theme song. It's all great. Except for James Coburn's bad accent, the acting is great too. 4.5 hearts. Everybody should watch this movie at least once, unquote. So, yeah. So it's funny because he'll go back and forth. Like he'll just have a regular accent. I think when he was in the French place at the end, like he would kind of talk normal and then he'd go into this other accent. So
yeah, and it seemed like he only knew a couple words to throw in there to make it sound like he was Australian, saying mate.
Yeah.
And
well, and
like,
especially you got to think like back then, like, not many people were world travelers, like didn't know, so you're like, and then, if you're acting though, I don't know. It depends on the actor. Because if I'm acting with Richard Attenborough, I'm hoping Attenborough's going to go, look, here's British.
Yeah.
Australian's a little like this, a little lazy British. And then it's like, oh, okay, I get it. But also you're Richard Attenborough and you're like, I'm worried about my shit. I'm not worried about your shit. Like you do whatever you want. So.
Well, and I think honestly, us as Americans really didn't know anything as far as like it really didn't hit us until Crocodile Dundee came out.
Right.
What the fuck Australia really sounded like.
Yeah. Very true.
Because you're listening to this guy for a whole damn movie.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh shit.
Well, and even when he's in the bar before they even go on their adventure, he's in the bar, he's talking to his buddy, he's talking to that native guy, and you can barely understand what they're saying because it sounds like they got marbles in their mouths, and you're like, I think I got it. But yeah.
Exactly. So that it makes sense that for that point, he pulled it off, and nobody probably went to the theater then and even thought a second thought about it at all.
Yeah. Well, it was just look at all this all-star cast. Like, yes, I'll take it, and not picking on it, just being like, cool, Yeah. Unless you're that guy, then you're like, hey, that was supposed to be kind of an amalgamation of, But anyway, all right, you ready to discuss this thing?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. In late 1942, having expended enormous resources on recapturing escaped Allied POWs, the Nazi German armed forces moved the most determined to Stalag Luft III, a new max security prisoner of war camp supervised by Luftwaffe Colonel von Luger. The Prisoners' Escape Committee, the X organization, led by Big X, RAF squadron leader Roger Bartlett, a former prisoner of the Gestapo, and with the support of the senior British officer group Captain Ramsey, mounted an audacious plan to tunnel out of the camp and break out 250 men. 250! not just to escape, but so that the German manpower will be wasted on finding POWs. Okay, I wanted to go back here. So what's great too is when he comes in, he's shackled, and the commandant knows that this guy was treated like shit because he just dealt with the Luftwaffe, like not the Luftwaffe, the what do you call it? What's the name that I'm looking for, Chip? He was anyway. He was held by the Gestapo, like so he knows like, oh, that's heavy duty, like. And then when he's like take his cuffs off, and then they take his cuffs off, and the commandant can see like this poor guy, like but also did you know whenever they show up they salute each other, like all that stuff. I thought a good touch at the end would have been if they saluted him as he was getting drug off, as he was driving away, because they were like, don't salute him. And I thought if the men would have saluted him, or one of them, but also then you're like, fuck these are the bad guys. We don't like that guy. So I can get that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love the part where he's like, when he's like, how many you plan on taking out? He's like 250, and he's putting the coffee down. Like, what the fuck?
And the coolest thing about it, I realized that, I guess because I haven't really watched any really, I mean, other than Papillon, but that was so long ago, Steve McQueen stuff, like, it was weird because the way he was reacting to things, the way he would throw his jaw forward, like looking at people with like a dumbfounded look sometimes.
Yeah.
I was like, he's doing Jerry Lewis. He's pulling, if you watch it, he's pulling a very Jerry Lewis kind of a thing where he just kind of like that, because he already knows what he's going to do. They're telling him what they're going to do, but he's kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
He's also kind of like, that's not changing my mind, bro. Kind of like
and he's like, I'm going to play the fool, but I'm not the fool. But you guys think I'm the fool, but you'll see, And the other thing that I don't know if it gets into here, but that thing with him and Ives have been going through this for a while. And Ives is getting to the point where I like how when they're put in, they're like smiles, whatever. They walk in, the door closes, and Ives is like deflated, like, fuck, now I got to spend 20 days in here. But like, Steve McQueen's just like, I can do this all day. So it's that thing of, it sucks because, it's just tearing him down. And some people you could see that would just go crazy, almost, same thing with Charles Bronson being like, but you dug so many tunnels. Yeah, I'm done. I hate it. I want to get out. Like, leave me alone. The men organize into teams, simultaneously working on 3 tunnels: Tom, Dick, and Harry. American Flight Lieutenant Bob Henley can find anything from a camera to identify cards. Okay, I get it. Australian Flying Officer Sedgwick makes tools like picks and bellows for pumping air into the tunnels. So I was thinking about this too. So now I'm going to be on the set. I'm, Wally Fooley, and I'm like, okay, this is how the tunnels were done. Here's how this. But then you're like, I don't know how the other guys made the picks, or I don't know how they made the bellows. Like, you don't have everybody there to be like, here's what we did to make the bellows. Like, you got one guy going, I dug tunnels. I kind of, it looked like this, and then them having to reverse engineer it or whatever.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and come up with whatever would make sense for what they need to shoot with the camera. And
exactly. Flight Lieutenants Danny Valinsky and Willie Dickies are in charge of digging the tunnels. Flight Lieutenant Andy McDonald Bartlett's second in command gathers and provides intelligence. Lieutenant Commander Eric Ashley Pitt of the Royal Navy devises a method of hiding dirt from the tunnels under the guards' noses. So that was cool. Right, when he's like, they're like, how do we blend it? And you're going, oh shit, like, yeah, that's white and dark, and what are you gonna do? And then he's like, well, we could, what was it? We could put under the things. And Bronson's like, there's 50 tons, and he's like, oh yeah, okay. He's like, I was just thinking out loud. We stop doing that. Just help us be more, And so yeah, and then with him, just like, then you pull the pins, and it all just kind of drains out, and you just kick it around, and it's like, oh, brilliant.
Yep. I was kind of wondering though, because I'm just sitting there going, yeah, but that's how many tons?
Right. And that's all over the camp. Like that's where you need but that's why some were maybe under the things, some were in the gardens, and that's why when Richard Attenborough was like, we're going to do music, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and they're like, what? And no, we're going to escape, but we're also going to make them think that we're doing all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So, Dynamo and Haynes are in charge of diverting the guards' attention to other things in the camp in order to pull off the more risky parts of the operation unnoticed. So that part's cool, where they're doing the music, but also they're banging on the thing to make whatever, banging the thing in, and then also with getting in that fight so they can pull the parts off the truck while they're so that was cool.
Oh, and that was the thing I was going to say that you said for me to remember, because you said it was a holiday thing.
Yes.
Because they were singing Christmas music also through the...
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, very true. Yeah, Christmas, and then... Yeah. What was it? Was it Christmas, and then it went to 4th of July? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then something else that'll come later, but, we'll talk about it later. All right. Soren is in charge of security. Forging papers to get to freedom is handled by Flight Lieutenant Colin Blythe. The work noise is covered by the prisoner choir, led by Flight Lieutenant Dennis Cavendish, who also does surveys to measure the tunnel. So what else is cool is that thing of he's showing the birds and that, and then here comes James Garner and he's like, you do this class? He goes, yeah, you'd learn a thing or two if you want to hang out. And the German guy's like, no, fucking whatever. And then he's like, okay, here's what we're really doing. We've got to make these things. And you're like, holy shit. On June 20th, 1943, Bartlett asked USAAF Captain Virgil Hiltz, who is attempting escapes with Scottish flying officer Archie Ives, RAF, but being constantly imprisoned in solitary confinement in the cooler, to help in the escape by getting out through the barbed wire, scouting out the area, and then allowing himself to be recaptured. Hiltz refuses Bartlett's order. Sorry. Dick and Harry, he refused his order. Hiltz refuses. Bartlett orders Dick and Harry sealed off as Tom is closest to completion. After hoarding potatoes, Hiltz, Henley, and American Second Lieutenant Goff concoct moonshine from a homemade still and celebrate the 4th of July with the entire camp. In the midst of the celebrations, the guards discover Tom. So, and that's where our guy Frick is like, hey, this don't look right. And you're like, fucking shut up, Frick.
Well, and it sucks though, because everything that they work for, everything that they do, and then they turn around and because they have people trying to keep them occupied while they do stuff. Now they've just occupied their own men to give time for the Germans to find the tunnel.
Yeah.
And it's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, very true. Yeah, I didn't think of that. Yeah. Yeah, where it's like, it's like when they first come in there and Charles Bronson jumps out and acts like he's taking a shower and James Coburn's like, I'm watching, I'm his lifeguard. And you're like, what you guys are up to something. I don't know what, but you're up to something. I'll figure it out. Okay, Mr. Belding. As the POWs react with dismay, a despondent Ives frantically climbs the barbed wire fence and is shot dead. So that's where, you see, Steve McQueen drops everything and goes to run for him. And it's like, but he can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
So,
which is sad. And I wonder if that actually happened or if
that actually happened. They've talked about how that's one of the things Ives being shot is that's a major thing.
Okay.
Hitz volunteers to provide reconnaissance from outside the camp, and Bartlett switches the prisoner's efforts to Harry. After the information Hiltz brings back is used to create maps to guide the escapers. After experiencing a tunnel collapse, a claustrophobic Danny tries to break out through the fence, but agrees to try the tunnel when Willie promises his support. That's another one where all of a sudden you're like watching the movie, you don't know. I mean, you and I have been watching more movies that we already know. So it's like, but this is like, all of a sudden out of the left field, you're like, this guy's going to run? Like, no, you're going to get killed too. Or you're just, they need you. Like, they need your help. Like, and then finally he's like, okay, fine. I'll, don't do that again when he hits him. And he's like, and don't do that again. So,
well, and the coolest part about it, I think, was just, I don't think I've watched much that has Bronson in it, but just the way he acted in his response to this and freaking out and doing things like that, it was just like, it was so authentic. And now knowing a little bit more information, you understand. But
but also, some of those actors that can just command a performance, command a presence, and you're just like, oh, this guy's got it. Like, yes. Blythe discovers that he is going blind due to progressive myopia. Henley takes it upon himself to be Blythe's guide in the escape. So I love where he walks over and puts a pin down, and then he comes back over and he's like, oh yeah, oh, there's a pin right there. Look, I can see it. And then he's like, well, why don't you walk back over to the door? And he's like, okay. And then he trips and he's like, yeah, you can't, And then James Garner's like, it's fine, we'll be good. And it's like, I don't know, would you? Maybe you would have been better without him, but it's okay. You did the right thing. The last part of the tunnel was completed on the scheduled night, March 24th, 1944. And despite some mishaps, such as the tunnel being 20 feet, 6 meters short, 76 prisoners, including Bartlett, McDonald, Henley, Blythe, Hiltz, Ashley Pitt, Danny, Willie, Sedgwick, Cavendish, Nemo, and Haynes, escape out the tunnel, aided by Hiltz using 30 feet of rope as a guide and an air raid blackout. So that part was cool because you're like, oh, fuck. And then when the air raid happens, you're like, okay, this is good. And he's like, we can get everybody out. But then it's like, but the lights are going to turn off in the tunnel. And they go off right as fucking Danny's coming through. And Danny's like, no. So, but.
And he panics. And
Yeah, but then finally they're like, okay. And, but yeah, just like them popping up and being like, we're short. And he's like, what? And he's like, we're short. And he's like, oh, fuck. But then they're like, we need to go. We can't. We got to go now. All the papers are dated today. We have to do it. It's like, holy shit. Cavendish slips and falls. Oh, Cavendish. Slips and falls after exiting the tunnel, which leads to him drawing a guard's attention and nearly being caught. But I love how that guard is right on him, but doesn't see him because it is supposed to be so dark where the guard's just like, I heard something. And I'm like, he's going to fall in that fucking hole. Like, what's going to happen? But then, and then he like scurries. Then he's like, don't shoot. And then he's like, don't shoot. And then, all hell
goes. Was that guy that came out?
Yeah, the other guy pops up. And
the
guy
did that couldn't wait.
Yeah.
If he would have just waited. Fucking dumbass.
Exactly.
And that is exactly what I said when he popped up.
Yeah. However, the escape attempts ultimately end when an impatient Griffith, here we are, exits the tunnel in a view of a guard and is captured immediately. The 76 POWs flee through the Third Reich. Cavendish hitchhikes in a truck, but is delivered to the authorities where he finds Haynes, disguised as a German soldier, captured. So that part's cool too, where now they've escaped. It's like the next morning, and you see them walking, then you see the guy you see Cavendish with the box like walk by, and you're like, oh shit. And then that's when he's like, we're all here right now. Like, I'd be like, this is not good. I'd be like James Coburn. I need to like just get a bike and just go somewhere.
Yeah. Well, and okay, so this is the point where I looked and saw that it was like we had 40 minutes left.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy crap! Like they just got out.
Yeah.
We got 40 minutes. I'm like, so shit's gonna go down. Because it's obviously not hey, they all got away. Woo.
Yeah.
But the only thing, honestly, that just kept running through my damn head was hide somewhere till it's fucking nighttime.
Yeah,
Why are you running all over the place, going all over the place, whatever, in the daytime? Like some of the ones that like were running and trying to get away, I'm like, look, there's ravines and ditches that you could just fucking tuck yourself away.
Right. Yeah.
Wait till nighttime.
Yeah, and then just keep walking.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, it's easy for us to say because we're not there in occupied, Nazi-occupied Germany. But it's that thing of, Anne Frank tried to hide, and that did not work very well. So their thing is like, we just need to get out. Like, we just need to go out of this country. You know, like James Coburn's like, I need to go to Spain. I need to go somewhere like where I can be protected. And I think also where they're like, we got the papers, we're looking good. We can just get on a plane, get on a train, and we can just go. Yeah. And something that I'll talk about when we get to that part is a part where they said they don't know if that's become the lexicon of, you know, good luck or whatever, or if that, you know, if that is what happened, because the French guy, if he was speaking French, he wouldn't have said good luck or something. And then there's words that it wasn't good luck or anything. It was that he said yes, American yes, instead of like Yavo or whatever. So, but they're not sure because through this movie, people are like, I think that's how it really happened. So it's weird. Cavendish hitchhike. We already said that. Where did I leave off? Oh yeah. Okay. Truck, but is delivered. Yeah, we said that. Disguise of Henley and Blythe steal a plane to fly over the Swiss border, but the engine fails and they crash land. And I like that too, just as a regular, like, what happened? Are we out of petrol? Like, what is it? I don't know. It's the carburetor. It's something I don't know. And it's like, cool. Blythe is shot and dies. So Blythe's just like not knowing where he's at. He's just standing on a hill. And, you know, and they were so close. He's like 20 more minutes and we'll be in the Swiss Alps. Like, it'll be great. Yeah. Blythe is shot and dies while Henley is recaptured. Hilt steals a motorcycle and at a crossroads, heading for the German-Swiss border to escape pursuing German soldiers. He begins... So, did you notice how, you know, he pulls up to that cross-section of a road and he looks over here and here's some guys coming. He looks over here and here's guys coming. He goes across the grass. Yeah. But did you see, like, there's a motorcycle by himself coming and he kind of drives up to the camera and then kind of spins around and goes on after him? And then the little thing with the sidecar, that's Steve McQueen doing that stunt. Like, they were like, we need to make this more exciting. So he did that, and then he got in the German uniform, put the goggles on, and then did the turn in front of the camera to take off after himself. And it's like him chasing himself, like, you know.
Well, that makes sense. I mean,
just to make it
looks
more
cool, but it just seems like all the cool shots where he was on a motorcycle was actually him doing all the stuff, and I was like, "Wow, that's pretty good for him having to keep control on that grass." Where it's like sliding.
I was thinking that too. Well, when you watch those like the YouTube things or whatever with cars wrecking, I can tell that it's cars. It's people who don't know how to drive cars. Not that I'm an expert, but I know enough to let off the gas. If the car starts to get a little squirrely, I just let off the gas, and you'll be fine. Yeah. But they're just pounding it down and they just fucking hit a tree or something. And that's like him. Like, he knows how to feather it and how to whatever. But he was like, I want to do this. You know, I'm really good at motorcycles. Me and Bud Eakins, we'll do this. And they were like, okay, so they added that in. None of this happened when they were being chased. There was no American being chased. There was nobody being chased on a motorcycle. Nobody being chased in the air. They all were on the ground. But yeah, that was cool. That little, you know, special effect, like chasing himself, like that'd be cool. He begins jumping barbed wire fences, but soldiers shoot out the bike's tire and he is recaptured. Ashley Pitt is shot and killed at a railway station when he causes a distraction to save McDonald and Bartlett. Excuse me, but they are recaptured after a Gestapo officer tricks them into speaking English. So there's not only that part of like, he already told the guy when he's sitting there and the guy said, he goes, you did very well. You know, you speak good German. And the guy goes, oh, thank you very much, sir. He's like, no, that's how you fucking fail. Like, no. And he's like, okay, always German. Okay. And he leaves. And then when he does it, you're like, oh, fuck. But then also when they have to split up, and Richard Attenborough is like speaking French and I think a little German. Yeah, he spoke German first, then French to them. And then he comes around the corner and then he looks over and there's the fucking Nazis waiting for him. And they're like, we hear you speak German and you speak French and now you're under arrest. And you're like, ah, fuck.
Yep.
Then, into speaking English, on the orders of Adolf Hitler, the Gestapo murder 48 of the prisoners, including Bartlett, MacDonald, Cavendish, and Haynes, on the pretext that they were trying to escape, bringing the total dead to 50. Only 3 POWs escape. Danny and Willie steal a rowboat and proceed downstream to a port where they board a merchant ship bound for Sweden. Sedgwick steals a bicycle, then rides on a train to France, where the French resistance assist him in reaching Spain. Real quick, to go back a little bit, when Henley and them, when they're all on the train, and Henley goes to talk to whoever, and he sees that the Germans are sitting across from the Big X, and he's like, "Oh shit!" And he comes back and he leans over by the guy from the man from Uncle, and he's like, "Hey, what's the word that he uses?" He's like,
"Oh, I forgot."
But he tells him telling him we need to go.
Word, yeah.
And so he's like, "Okay," and then he tells somebody else, and they're like, "Okay," and then he's like, "Come on, we got to leave." And then they jump off the train, and he's like, "Did they stop?" And he's like, "No." Oh, well, that's good. That was kind of exciting. Donald Pleasence is so underrated. He does such good work. Not just people, I think, more just know him from Halloween, but he's been in so much other great stuff that he's really good. Henley, Nimmo, and 9 others are returned to the camp. When informed of the dead, Henley wonders if the cost was worth it, and Ramsey tells him it depends on the point of view. Von Uger is relieved of command as Hiltz returns and is sent to the cooler, where he plans another escape. The end.
Yeah.
So, it was... So, you liked it? Yes? You enjoyed it?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Yep.
I got some things here. The film is accurate in showing that only 3 escapees made home runs, although the people who made them differed from those in the film. The escape of Danny and Willie in the film is based on 2 Norwegians who escaped by boat to Sweden, Per Bergsland and Jens Mueller. The successful escape of James Coburn's Australian character Sedgwick, the manufacturer, via Spain, was based on Dutchman Bram van der Stok. So that's the 3. So those 2 plus the 1. While the characters are fictitious, they are based on real men, in most cases being composites of several people. The screenwriting significantly increased the involvement of American POWs. A few American officers in the camp initially helped dig the tunnels and worked on the early plans. However, they were moved away 7 months before the escape, which ended their involvement. So that's where the Americans started to dig, and then the Americans got pulled out for whatever reason. The real escape was by largely British and other Allied personnel, with the exception of American Johnny Dodge, who was a British officer. The film omits the crucial role that Canadians played in building the tunnels and in the escape itself. Of the 1,800 or so POWs, 600 were involved in preparation. 150 of those were Canadian. Wally Floody, an RCAF pilot and former miner who was the real-life tunnel king, was engaged as a technical advisor for the film. So there's another thing, too. You're like, we need somebody to dig a tunnel. Okay, do I get Chip, who works at Walmart? Do I get me, who works as security? No, let's get a guy who worked on a mine. Oh, you used to work in a mine? Can you help us figure out, this tunnel system? Sure, let me help. The film depicts the escape taking place in ideal weather conditions, whereas at the time, much was done in freezing temperatures and snow lay thick on the ground.
Wow.
The movie shows 3 truckloads of recaptured POWs splitting off in 3 directions. One truck contains 20 of the prisoners who are invited to stretch their legs in a field, whereupon they are all machine gunned in a single massacre, with the implication that the other 2 have the same manner. In reality, the POWs were shot individually or in pairs. The majority of the POWs were killed by pistol shots taken by Gestapo officers. However, at least 10 of them were killed in a manner like that portrayed in the film. Dutchie Swain, Chaz Hall, Brian Evans, Wally Valenta, George McGill, Pat Langlord, Edgar Humphreys, Adam Kolonowski, Bob Stewart, and Henry Hank Birkeland. So, reviews. Rotten Tomatoes critical consensus reads, with its impeccable slow-building story and a cast for the ages, The Great Escape is an all-time action classic. So, I give it 5 out of 5 cellular hearts. What do you give it?
I give it a 5.
Yeah.
I think I was kind of the same thing. The only thing that really pulled me out was Coburn's
accent.
Yeah. And I think that's largely just because we've seen movies and have seen enough stuff now that we know what an Australian sounds like.
There's a movie that Sergio Leone did called Fistful of Dynamite, and it's got Rod Steiger playing a Mexican, and it's got him playing like an Irish. It's got James Coburn playing Irish. So he's got this accent, and it works better than this movie, but still I'm like, just have a regular accent, but okay.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about this movie I realized when I finished it was that, I've already pointed this out, that I like movies where all the characters actually feel like their own character, that nothing really mixes together.
Yeah.
And stuff like they all have their own individual personalities or whatever. But the cool thing about this is that it was, for me, I don't know how long, it takes you, because I've watched so many reruns of MASH, but when you watch MASH and stuff, everybody has their own personality in MASH, and you get to watch it, over a course of time to really get to know these characters.
Yeah.
But it felt that way with this movie, all in that 3-hour, span of time, that you got to know each one of them, to the point where when you find out 50 of them are dead, you're like,
I was going to ask how you took that. Were you thinking that was going to happen? Were you thinking maybe they're just going to be brought back? And then when it was like, get out, stretch your legs, you were like, uh-oh.
The moment that happened, the stretch your legs, I was like, fuck. I was like, they're dead. Like that. I was like, because the movie's been, even though it is in a camp like that, the movie's been very kind of lighthearted, to a point where, of course, every time Steve McQueen got out, he came back in, give him his ball, blah, 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 bullshit.
Yeah.
And I was there going, okay. But when you know everything that the Nazis did, when you think of all the crap that they did to all these people and just killed innocent people in the truckloads, that I'm just sitting there going, why are they even leaving these people alive? Why aren't they just killing all of them the way that they do?
Yeah.
So when that finally came about in the movie, I went, there you go.
Yeah.
That's the
Nazis I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing where it's a thing sometimes where you go, you guys could overpower them. Like, there's more than you than them, and some of you might get shot and winged, but you could surprise them and do. But then also you're like, but then now you're stuck. Now you all have to leave, and you don't have any documents, and everybody is alerted or whatever. But it's the thing of also that thing of like, I'm not gonna let them see me sweat. It's like I was telling Dad. Remember, the last epic we did was Bridge on River Kwai. And I said, when he brings him in, after he brings him in, Japanese guy's like, okay, I want you to, help me make the bridge. And he's like, no. And he's not eating his food. He's not touching his drink. He's just sitting there. And maybe even standing, I forget, wouldn't even sit. And you're like, holy shit. Because he's like, I'm not going to give this guy an ounce. And that's like you said, even though, he may be hurt, and even though Steve McQueen may want to kick their ass, those guys that killed Ives, but he's just holding himself and okay, cooler? Yeah, okay, no problem, because he knows. And that's why they show that officer, whenever that officer goes to leave, that brings him to the cooler, he's always like, fuck, we can't break this guy. What the fuck? Ives you could break, but you can't break McQueen. He's a cooler king. So, but exactly. It's really good. It's one of those that you're not going to watch a lot, but if you found it on TV, you would just go ahead and watch it because it's good and it moves fast, even though you're kind of like, my wife was like, I'm going to go to bed. You watch your movie now. I'm like, okay. So, but yeah, it's really good. So I'm glad that you got to see it. And this movie is in my head and heart because, for one, we picked it because it's epic. I thought that there'd be a thing. Remember last time we thought that there'd be an intermission. There was no intermission. And on this one, I thought there'd be an intermission. No intermission. But the one that sticks with my head is Steve McQueen, of course, the jump, all that stuff. So that's like him going on the hills. And then when it goes out of the sight and comes up, then that's Bud Eakins like doing it. But they also said there's so much that you don't know which is Bud, which is him, and which is another stunt driver. And that he would just jump it for fun, but he couldn't get covered by insurance, but he would go ahead and jump it. And then also, I think on the making of, I saw them making the barbed wire, like all the actors are like just making the fake barbed wire. But maybe it's just in my head. But yeah, I mean, it's the thing of 250. Like, that's my favorite when he's like, because I was telling my dad, I go, yeah. So he's thinking like they're going to take out 10, 20, and he goes 250. And he's like, 250. And they would have got it. They would have got, the law of averages, 250 people leaving and them catching, but the whole point was like, now you got everybody trying to get them and pull in their efforts from the front to try to catch these guys.
Yep.
So
exactly.
It's very cool. Anything that sticks in your head from now seeing this? Or just Steve McQueen doing Jerry Lewis?
Yeah, that's like the main thing is at the beginning, just like that was my first real thing that hit me was that moment that he kind of just had like this look on his face where he got it out of his jaw, just like listening to really.
And when you think about it, that's what Leo did really well when they redid it. Like, he does that exact shot, like that exact scene. But yeah, it was very fun. Thank you for joining us for this epic movie. We appreciate it. Come back next week when Chip will be on vacation and celebrating his birthday, and I will be joined by Dave from Movie Chatter Podcast. So join us, him and I, Dave and I, on September 9th for
1976. The American merchant vessel Petrox Explorer has just set sail from the port of Surabaya in search of oil. What they find will shock the world.
We may be sailing into the history books.
They will catch a stowaway.
And landing on the beach of the Skull, where he heard the roar of the greatest beast.
They will rescue a beautiful castaway.
She's alive!
Maybe my luck has changed.
And they will discover an uncharted island that is the home of the most incredible creature on the face of the earth. A creature called Kong. Dino De Laurentiis and Paramount Pictures present the most exciting original motion picture event of all time. King Kong. King Kong, a fantastic adventure.
Open the gate!
King Kong, a colossal achievement. King Kong, a motion picture filled with sights and sounds unlike anything you've ever experienced before. King Kong.
Don't flood the tank! She fell in!
With Jeff Bridges, Charles Grodin, and introducing Jessica Lange as the beauty who charmed the beast. And starring the eighth wonder of the world, King Kong.
That's right, from 1976, it's King Kong. So I don't know. Have you ever seen this Jeff Bridges King Kong?
I remember watching it, I think with my dad when I was young, but
we saw it in school once, and I remember I was like, "Oh, he's pulling off her clothes," like, "Ooh," and but that's all I remember. And I remember then later catching it on TV, like 3 or 4 months ago. I caught just the part where they're bringing him on the boat, and I was like, "Oh, that CGI looks really bad." Like he's filmed it somewhere, and then there's a plate around him, and it's them, the actors around it. So I'm like, "Oh," but it won for special for 76. It's doing pretty good. So, and now that I watch a trailer, it looks really good. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be able to finally sit down and see this whole thing. Dave is a big Godzilla, King Kong, kaiju type fan. So it'll be good to see that. And I think I'll have a different appreciation for it. And like I told him, I said, I'm not sure. He goes, well, then, maybe I can talk you into it. And I said, yeah, or I can talk you into no, this movie sucks. But it was one of his favorites growing up. So he's a little older than me. So he saw it in the theater in 76. So, but all right, Chip, I think that's all. And then Chip will be back and we'll do something. We'll figure out something.
Yep, we will.
All right. Well, certain movies stick with you. They stay in your head and heart forever. So from all of us at My Cellular Heart, keep watching movies. What do you have to say, Chip?
Hasta la bye-bye, people. I'm going to go on a cruise.
That's right. Going to go cruising with his lowrider in his hand. Oh, like on a boat. Oh, I see. Or a ship. Yeah. On a boat, bitch.
Petri dish on water.
That's right. Well, hopefully there's more than 250 people. Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you. And, what Chip said. Bye-bye, everybody. If I can move this down.